Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of the People Progressing podcast. And I am so excited because I've been trying to get Abby on for a long time. We finally pinned down a day to do it. And I got Abby Waner, Bartolotta. Did I say that right, Abby?
It sounds a lot prettier in Italian, but
Okay.
the American way is fine. That was right.
And her husband Jimmy is an awesome guy. And I just really excited to have Abby on. She went to Thunder Ridge High School, was a National Player of the Year. Think about that. National Player of the Year. Of all the girls that played basketball in one season, she was the best of all of them, which just blows me away still. And a lot of other accolades that we'll get into. But Abby, I always start out by just asking, like, where did you grow up? What did you like to do as a kid? Some of the influences you had, some of the things you like to do that kind of got you to where you are now.
Yeah. Well, first, it's such an honor to
This is
be.
fun.
It's so neat. Coach, it's I'll get to that, but it's actually you were part of that answer. But the full circle moments I've been having as nearing 40 years old. I grew up in Highlands Ranch, and now I live in Highlands Ranch. And some of my favorite moments are when I am running on the East-West Trail in Highlands Ranch, and I run right past Coach White, and we get to stop, chat, and hear about
Yeah.
each other's families. And so anyway, this is really neat. And I think it's awesome what you're doing and getting other people's stories out there, but I think it's also reciprocated in terms of what you have to share with us and all your listeners after your years spent teaching and coaching and influencing all the lives that you did. So mine
Well,
includes.
thank you. It's been fun. This is a pure joy to do stuff like this, and to have you on is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. I want people to hear um, what makes you tick,
Yeah.
what makes you go.
Well, I guess you asked me about my childhood, and I kind of have a interesting lens because I now have a 6 and a 4-year-old myself. So it kind of brings you back when you're a parent. You think all you know is how you were raised and what you did as a kid and what your parents did. So I'm kind of at this interesting juncture where I am reflecting a lot on my childhood and what it was like and what parts of my childhood influenced me into, you know, teenage years and adulthood. But I grew up in Highlands Ranch, essentially. I was born in as originated in Denver. My parents migrated to Highlands Ranch, and we were the brand new suburb, and the affordable houses from Denver, and they liked the school system and planted us out here, and that's where we stayed. I have an older sister, Emily, who's 2 years older than me. Also a basketball player, also a Thunder Ridge athlete. So um, and then I've got a younger brother who's 5 years younger than me. His name is Alex. And so a lot of my childhood was centered around my siblings, which I feel pretty fortunate for. Um, my dad worked in construction, and a lot of people recognize the red W around town for Waner construction, but my childhood, it was not the glory. He would never call it glory of owning a construction company with all the challenges that come with it. But we were growing up. He worked for another company and went through layoffs and had to make the decision with my mom. When they're kind of at a low point, do we start our own thing and take that big risk? And so I vividly remember all of those moments, and I think that was really influential for me because I remember my dad coming home, and I remember seeing him cry when he lost his job. And then you flash forward to what he was able to build with his company in
Amazing.
the most humble way possible.
Yeah.
He did that. And then being able to see him retire one day. And, I get to talk to him almost every day and hear about his retired life and, the golf that he's playing that day, or the golf that he's watching that day, or the golf that he's thinking about that day. So I bring that up because my parents, as with everybody, were just incredibly influential. That's kind of my dad's path. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and the best stay-at-home mom. I feel really fortunate because she sacrificed her career I now understand it, as a
Yeah.
mom myself, that the hardest job is to stay at home. Um, and she was every PTA, she did every carpool, but she created the house where my friends wanted to come. Not because we had the flashiest things or, because we could have open access to the pantry or to the TV or anything like that, but because she made everybody feel so welcome and loved
Yeah.
that every one of my friends who came in that door, I would find that they sit at the kitchen table for most of the afternoon and they're talking to my mom rather than
Yeah.
hanging out with me. Um, so my childhood was probably pretty structured pretty similarly to a lot of people who grew up the same way that I did. But, I have to put an asterisk to that I think my parents were pretty unique in their own ways.
Yeah. Your parents are special. That's how I look at your parents. They're two amazing people that I've gotten to know for over 20 years now. And I just say it this way, they did it right. They did it right. And the proof is in the pudding. And they worked hard, they loved hard, they supported
Mhm.
the best support system. They're just amazing people. And so is your sister. Your sister was an amazing athlete who's now serving people by being a doctor, and married and has kids. And Alex is, one of my guys I look up to. I mean, he's doing well. Your family is it's just a good, solid family that has done so many great things. But I want to go into the mindset, Abby, because it wasn't all easy for you. You had some great success in basketball. You had great success in school. And I think a lot of people look at that success sometimes and just think, well, that was, she was just naturally gifted. And you were. I mean, you were naturally gifted. But I want to tell people from the bottom, that need to know this, that you were probably the hardest working athlete that I've ever seen. Coming in on Sunday nights, we'd go in for football film study on Sunday nights with the coaches, and there you were in there shooting and doing those things. Where did you get that work ethic? Where did you get that drive?
It makes me emotional hearing that, because I think when you're in it, it's and maybe this is what you want to talk about, is it was kind of just who I was. And so it's not like I was doing it for show or for the accolades. I think it was there. And um, I to kind of bridge the conversation, one thing my parents did was they found the opportunities for us. My dad sought out the best coach that he heard of in the metro area. And I remember the day he picked me up from school. I remember the shirt I was wearing and the traffic we drove in to get all the way to um, the Denver Athletic Club. And that was my first practice with club basketball, and that kind of opened the door for everything else. But my parents, they found the opportunity, but what they didn't do is they didn't do it for us.
Right.
They didn't call our coaches. I got cut. They didn't do anything about it. They said, well, try again next year.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
um so I think that I always felt very average as an athlete early on. I didn't know any different. Um, I loved sports. I loved soccer. I loved softball. I loved basketball. And I was taught from my parents that you tuck your jersey in, you show up on time, you listen to the coach, you do not talk back. And you play hard every single second that you get the opportunity to, because if you don't, then you're wasting our time, you're wasting your time, and you're wasting your coach's time, and that's not okay. Um, so I think it was largely how I was parented. Um, but I think the other side of it was that I spent the majority of my youth playing against people who were better than me, bigger than me, older than me, more talented than me. Um, and I think, I was fortunate in the birth order in that I had an older sister. So I spent my whole life just trying to keep up with her and play with her friends. Um, when I played club basketball, I was a fifth grader, I think, and the majority of players were high schoolers. So right off the bat, I was never the best because I was always surrounded by people who were better than me. Um, and then, of course, I think when I got to middle school, probably right around seventh grade, um, I started to realize that, hey, maybe I've got something here and I think I can be pretty good. So I'm not saying that it was just this, nonchalance that I had. But then I was fortunate enough to be in this community where I had people who could help me cultivate that. I was just talking to Joe Ortiz, the head basketball coach, and he let me play with the boys, and he runs a tight ship. So
Mhm.
it's not like, you just show up in the gym and if you're around, he'll let you lace them up and get out on the court. He was very intentional with letting me play with the boys. I played at the rec center. I think what's important for kids now to realize is not everything has to be a structured skill lesson,
Yes.
you know?
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. I any downtime I had, I was at Northridge Rec Center.
Yeah.
Not that we were always, working hard, but we were in the gym and there was always a ball. Somebody was always challenging us to deep threes or a 3-on-3 or 1-on-1 or whatever it was. Um, so I just grew to love it. I loved
Yeah.
competing. I loved athletics. I think I ran one track meet and gave that up at the time, but if I could have, I think I probably would have kept doing it. So um, I don't know if I fully answered your question, but
No, you did, and I want to dive deeper into it. You used the word challenge, and that was going to be my next question to you. You're not afraid of a challenge. Um, I always think that challenges is where you grow. And you mentioned playing against older kids. Playing against the boys, going to the rec center and someone challenging you to a 3-point contest or whatever it might be. What made Abby never back down from that challenge? Those challenges are what made you grow and progress and keep getting better and better and better. But you have to have the inside of you to be able to accept those challenges and really want to go after those challenges and beat the challenge. You know what I'm saying? What
yeah,
what what is it that gives you that edge?
defeat is hard. Um, and so, when you're with those challenges, it's not like you're always going to win.
Right,
Um,
right.
or you're not always going to come out on top, or you're not always going to see the light, or whatever it is that you're kind of after. Um, you know, I I had I had this insatiable desire to be the best.
Yeah. I knew you were going to go there. I love it. I love it. Keep going.
um,
Keep going. Keep going.
all right, okay, I got to think through this because this is some stuff that I haven't thought about in a long time. But it would it would gnaw at me. Um, if I lost a game, if I lost a one-on-one in practice, or if I got scored on, or um, even back to my other sports, like I was a really bad loser. Hated losing.
Was it
Um,
unhealthy for you at any point?
yeah, I think so. I think it's tough. It's tough to bifurcate, what's healthy and not when you're in it and you're going after a goal. And I think that's what's really important about the dialogue that's happening today, including what you're doing. Um, I think therapy isn't talked about enough for athletes,
Yeah.
for young kids.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and I think that breath work, I think downtime, I think there's so many things that really make an athlete whole. And it's socially acceptable to talk about some of that now. Um, but when you're in it, it's hard. You can't really step outside of it and then keep, at least I couldn't. I didn't know how to turn it off, um, and separate. So, I think that you ask about challenge in that, and I share this with young kids all the time. If I if I were not as good, of an athlete as I was, I don't think I would have been as good of a student as I was. It wasn't this like light switch that you can turn off. I think greatness is something that you cultivate in every aspect of your life. Um, and so, I saw challenges in everything in school, at home or with we loved hard in our friendships, and it's not something that you just decide, I'm going to apply this to this part of my life, but I'm not going to have it over here. And does that catch up to you over time? Maybe. But it worked well for me. And I think that's why I was able to get a scholarship to a place like Duke, because I saw academics and athletics in the same light.
Yeah.
So I don't know what made me never back down to a challenge. I think it's this just innate desire of wanting to be the best.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's phenomenal. Was there a time in your life where you're like, okay, I'm done with that. I gotta just enjoy life a little bit more?
Yeah.
The only reason I asked that is because I was the same way. When I played, I wanted to be the best on the field. And if I wasn't the best on the field, I didn't want to be around anybody after the game.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was embarrassing. I'm like, I wasn't the best out there. It's embarrassing for me to talk to you right now. And that was unhealthy. It got to be an unhealthy thing. And it got to a point where even in coaching, where you get to that a lot, and you get to a point where you're just kind of like, okay, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with that. I just want to kind of enjoy things a little bit more than I maybe could have. Has that ever happened to you?
Well, I can think about it twice. And to your point, something I didn't do well is I don't think I was a great teammate all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Because I had such high expectations.
Yeah.
And I only had one level.
Right.
And I didn't allow my teammates to have their own levels. All I knew was this.
Wow.
So I remember one game in Phoenix, at Thunder Ridge, we were the best team in the state. And I hear my 4-year-old knocking, Coach.
Oh, you're okay.
Can we give me Annie? Record. Come here, what do you need?
Can I have I want to do blue.
Okay, hang on 1 second. Can we edit this?
No, we're good. It's real.
Oh man, I'll
do what you need to do. You're a mom.
go ask Dad. Dad's downstairs. Go ask Dad.
You're a mom.
Oh, so with Thunder Ridge, we were the best team in the state, and we then challenged ourselves to play in a national tournament in Phoenix. And this was like it for us. This was like,
Hey, Mama.
then I'm gonna need you to wait. You can keep watching what you're watching now.
Oh.
Annie, I'm in the middle of something. I need you to go watch what you're watching now. Thank you. So we go down to Phoenix, and this was our chance to be ranked nationally. And I think we were like 3 in the country or something without having played against any of these top teams. We go down there, and I think we won a game, and then we lost very quickly to St. Mary's. They were a school out of California. And I think I fouled out. Pretty sure my dad got ejected, which really didn't happen all that much. I will say the refs were horrible. The refs were very bad. It was horrible. It was a bad game all around. And I went into the locker room after him, and I remember throwing a like protein shake on the wall. I couldn't control it. I was so angry. I felt like we blew it. And then I remember looking around and be like, my teammates needed something different from me, and I didn't have that to give.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't think I always handled that well. And looking back, I wish I had been a better teammate and learned how to help my teammates reach their potential, which could have looked different than mine.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So the first point in my career when I was just done, I was at Duke. My freshman and sophomore year were pretty magical. We made it to the national championship game, lost in the national championship in overtime, which was brutal.
Yeah. I remember.
The next year we were #1 in the country. It was everything kind of that I had been chalked up to be and why I went to Duke. My coach left. She went to Texas, and I had some decisions to make and decided to stay at Duke. Had a really tough junior and senior year. My senior year, I tore my MCL literally the practice before the selection show. Like it was all just bad. I ended up getting drafted, which was a goal. I wanted to be in the lottery pick. I didn't want to be sitting in the 3rd round. Went up to New York to try out for the Liberty, and I didn't take care of myself. I think I was depressed. I Probably should have stayed at school, but I left school early to go train in New York. So now I'm in New York City by myself, taking the train out to White Plains. It just, and then I ended up getting cut. And I actually played out of my mind for a few practices with the Liberty, but they had recently in the WNBA cut the roster spots from like 13 to 11 or something. It was a really skinny bench that they had. And I wasn't a point guard, but they needed me to play point guard for the Liberty. And so I got cut. And that was probably the lowest point for me. And I drove across country, came home, kind of tail between my legs, and I had the chance to play. I remember I had an offer to play in like France or something. And a lot of people were like, well, hey, like women's basketball is huge in Europe. Go make some money playing hoops and go play in Europe. And coach, I was just done.
Done. Yeah.
I knew it. My body was beat up. I was not taking care of myself in the way that a professional athlete should.
Yeah.
So I took a job with ESPN and did yoga for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't run a single sprint. I didn't do anything competitive. I wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I know the feeling, because you drive and drive and drive and drive and drive, and it gets to a point where you're just like, I don't need to be the best anymore. I just want to enjoy life. I want to go back, Abby. I want to go back. So you went to Thunder Ridge High School. You were the National Player of the Year. You guys won state championships. You had all the accolades. You had a choice of schools that you could have gone to. What was that process like of trying to decide what college you wanted to go to? And you, the great thing that you had done, you had set yourself up to be able to pick any school you wanted, both academically and athletically, because you were an unbelievable student and athlete, where a lot of kids only can choose one. They can only choose, like, I can go here, but I don't know if I can get in there. You could go anywhere you wanted because you set yourself up for success with challenging yourself in school, challenging yourself on the court, and all those things. What was that process like when you were trying to decide?
Yeah, again, I go back to my sister. I was really fortunate to have her. Emily, she paved the way for me, literally every single every single place I went. Yeah. I looked at the accolades that I got. I just called her last week after the Chassa Hall of Fame event. And I said, it just feels weird being up there without you.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it was never just me. So I watched my sister go through that process. And I remember when she picked the University of Colorado, I remember her telling Sealberry, and then I was up there a lot with her at CU because she really struggled her freshman year up there, and it just wasn't the right fit. So I kind of had a glimpse into the process. I also played on a club team where in any given year, there were, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players going Division I. So there was a structure in place that really helped. And I think oftentimes parents today, especially if you don't know what you don't know, it could be a very overwhelming thing to consider. So I want to just get that out there, that I had the people in place to help me. It was kind of a wild time back then. And, I think every generation does this, but I thought it was pretty cool that in my generation, we got physical letters,
Yeah, I remember.
And my parents, true to their form, they made me fill out every single questionnaire. It didn't matter if it was St. Bonaventure in New York or Stanford University. I filled out every single questionnaire by hand, sent it in. I had my parents were very good safeguards for me. So they kept some rails in place to the recruiting process. And thank God social media was just not a thing. So coaches had to call my house line to talk to me. So I developed some really great relationships with coaches through that process. And to be frank, coach, I didn't really think about it much until I had to.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the case for most kids. Often it's probably the parents that think about it.
Yeah.
I was just hooping. I was playing basketball. We were winning games, and I was excited for the tournament, and I wanted to mess around with my teammates on the airplane. Yeah,
Win the state championship.
Exactly. Yeah, we had
Yeah.
other goals in mind.
Yeah.
So with that process, we really narrowed it down. I often think about the quote from My Big Fat Greek Wedding where she says that the husband's the brain, but the wife is the neck that moves the head. My parents were the neck, right? So they would kind of steer me in a direction, but let me make my own choices. So we really prioritized academics and athletics. So I visited on official. I don't even know if I did official visits, but we visited Notre Dame, Stanford, Duke, and then Connecticut, and then CU was my fifth. But when my sister decided to transfer, it was really those four. So I was really lucky because I actually literally decided where I was going to go to school with my sister because she had
That's
decided to
awesome.
leave
Yeah.
CU. Yeah. So, the way we thought about it was nobody from Colorado had played at Duke. So we weren't following in anybody else's footsteps. Connecticut was very appealing for me. Kind of getting back to that greatness.
Yeah.
At that time, it was UConn and Tennessee. Gino really resonated with me. I respond well to his type of coaching. Um, I have friends today that still tell me about, one of the boys players. It's like I was walking into practice and there was this man standing in the way of the gym at Thunderidge High School, and I was like, "Excuse me," because he turns around and I realize it's Gino Ariema waiting to get into the gym. But really, Emily and I kind of decided that UConn was the team of team of that moment, and we wanted to go do something different at Duke. Duke had never won a national championship. They had everything in place. We really liked Coach Gail Gessencour's. So the scariest phone call I ever had to make was in the halls. I remember where I was. I was in Thunderidge High School in the hallway, walking into the library, calling Gino on his cell phone to tell him that I was going to go to Duke. And thank God it went to voicemail. So I was able to leave a message and be done with it. But anyway, so yeah, we committed to Duke, and I remember when we made that decision, I came home from practice one day, and my sister had wrote on just a little white piece of paper and taped it to the garage door. Abby, let's go to Duke. So it was kind of neat, and I was like, you know what, she's right. Let's do it.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it was neat. It's neat.
So now you go. Now you go. And it's a whole new world. It's a whole new challenge for you. How hard was it? Was it hard when you first got there? Was it, again, people think, well, here's Abby, she's going there and starting at Duke and freshman and, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't that easy, was it?
It's kind of like you run into a brick wall. Like you just, my senior year of high school, I think I played USA basketball that summer. So I had exposure to what it was like to play with that caliber of athlete, players 1 through 12. In high school and club ball, you might get 1, 2, or 3 of those players, but once you're at that level, it's very different. So I step on the court and I'm a very average 5'10" athlete. There's not much that's special about me.
Yeah, right.
I will say that I think my strength program at Thunderidge really prepared me well, because I think that's a roadblock for a lot of athletes making the transition from high school to college, is they don't know how to train. But we had a very sophisticated strength and conditioning program with Coach Ackerman that really helped. The other thing that really helped was I wasn't just an offensive player in high school. I really loved playing defense.
Yeah.
And with basketball, I think a lot of young players don't see the court at first because they don't understand the speed and how to play defense at the next level. So those two things helped me. And then, having the experience with USA basketball helped. But I remember being so tired every minute that you're walking around campus.
Mm-hmm.
And you find 17 minutes to go close your eyes on a couch somewhere and you do it. So that was the exhaustion was real. The expectations, you've got college level courses where you're supposed to read 60 pages a night, but you have to wake up at 6 for strength and conditioning, followed by practice, followed by a full day of class. So time management was a real thing. That was tough to do. So it was hard, but I think what I found was that, you know, I was able to rise to the occasion. I think hard work takes you really far.
Yeah.
You know, the same thing, my sister and I would be in the gym after practice. And I was kind of surprised that oftentimes we were the only two that stuck around after to shoot. I thought college would be different and everybody would be like us, but I think what we found was we're actually just very average athletes. Everybody else is superior athletes, so they just didn't have to do quite as much. But you know, I worked just as hard in college, and I think that really helped me my freshman year and get me kind of the playing time that it did.
Now let's talk a little bit about this. Give me a time where Abby's failed.
Oh boy, which one?
Just any time.
Yeah. Boston College, I got pulled from the starting lineup. So here I was, National Player of the Year in high school, earned my starting spot at Duke, and midway through the season, you know, we were at the hotel in Boston, and my coach pulled me aside and she said, "Hey, I gotta let you know, you're gonna be coming off the bench tonight." And that was a gut punch. And I go back to how I think I had a lot of room to be a better teammate, because I thought a lot about myself then and what that meant to me and how embarrassing it was to me and how I was coming off the bench when, if I could have had tools to just see the bigger picture right then and there, which is hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I eventually got there and actually kind of owned the 6-man role and ended up really liking it because pressure's off. So that was a really hard one early on. You know, the big one right after that though would be when we lost in the national championship.
Yeah, that was a crusher. I remember you sitting on the floor afterwards. I still have that. But the only reason I asked that question, Abby, is because how did you pick yourself back up after those situations? You know, what's your mindset there? It's a gut punch. You said it's a gut punch when you got told you're going to come off the bench. It's a gut punch when you lose a national championship game that you've worked your whole life for in overtime, and you had chances to win that game. I remember just watching that game in agony and agony and agony, you know, because I know you and Emily, how much you wanted it and so forth. How do you overcome it? How do you get better from it? What did you do? What's some things that you did that made you better from it?
Yeah. Well, I'll say out of the gates, you know, I haven't overcome that one.
No.
But I had to keep going,
Yeah.
you know. In fact, during the pandemic, when it was March, obviously, and the tournament didn't happen that year in 2020. And so what ESPN did was they started playing every single championship game on repeat.
Yeah.
And I had never watched that game in my life. And now all of a sudden here I am in the pandemic with nothing to do. And ESPN is playing the worst moment of my life over and over and over.
I still can't watch it because I
Yeah, it's
remember that
awful.
time, and when it came on, I turned it. I couldn't watch it. I
Yeah.
watched some of it so I could watch you again and Emily again. But then when it got down to the last part of it, I couldn't watch it.
It's nauseating. Christy Tolliver comes off a screen with our 6'7" center, hand up, and I was standing under the hoop and had to grab the ball out of the net. It was the worst feeling. That took a lot. I was pretty broken after that game. That was my life dream,
Yeah.
and it vanished in a matter of minutes. We got back to campus and everybody was broken, you know. And I wish I could remember the exact quote, but Debbie Antonelli is a ESPN analyst for college basketball, and she covered a lot of our games, and she lived in North Carolina, so she knew our team well and she knew me well. She wrote me a card, and it basically said, like, what you don't have today, you can still get tomorrow. It's more eloquent than that, but so it took me a while. I think I probably didn't touch a basketball for a long time, you know, over the spring. But then after that, I kind of adopted this mantra of next play. And I wrote it on my shoes. I had next on the left and play on the right, because I really struggled to move on to the next play, to the next game, to the next season.
Yeah.
And so I found that if I could remind myself to just keep going, even if it's the smallest little thing. If you miss a shot, you know, you don't have time to wallow in that one shot. So next play, what can you do the next play? And I think it really helped my game, because one of the things I'm most proud of is, sure, I was as known as a 3-point shooter, but really I was a really good defender, and I think I don't know where I fell in the stats, and I don't frankly care, but I got a lot of steals, and I was really scrappy on defense.
Yeah.
And I think that mindset really helped me, because if you miss a shot, if you turn it over, well, guess what? There's an opportunity right on the other end of the court. So that helped. In the following season, I mean, we were really good, and I was playing really well my sophomore year. After that loss, we hadn't lost a game. We were 30 something and 0, and we got bounced in the Sweet 16. We shouldn't have lost, and you know, our season was over. But up until that game, it was probably a pretty good example of how to find the will to keep going.
Now let's translate this over into life. Next play. How have you used your athletic experiences, your adversity, your losing a championship game, those different kind of things that you've gone through? How do you use that now in your business life? You're a successful business person now. You're a successful wife and mother. It's just so gratifying to watch you be a mom. It's so fun. How do you use those experiences next play in life, in business?
I think what I've learned through athletics is that everything comes to an end.
Yeah.
So you have no choice.
Yeah.
Life keeps going. If you're lucky, you know, like
Right.
we're fortunate.
Right.
So I think about life in seasons now. You know, the kids are a good example that little kids are hard, but it's just a season.
Yeah.
And if I feel like it's really difficult to get ready for work in the morning because I've got a baby and a 2-year-old, like, well, now it's a lot easier. They're self-sufficient. They're getting up, you know, so I've learned to take things in chunks. I used to get really bogged down in what's my purpose? What am I achieving? What am I going after? And that's not always practical, and it's also not always fulfilling. So I think that's kind of my wisdom today, is that everything cycles through, and there's going to be another opportunity. You know, I think athletically, I told you I didn't want to do anything competitive for a long, long time. And I got into running as more of a form of mental health. Just being outside and being by myself, I can work through a lot. And now it's like a drug. Like, I'm just addicted. I love it. So I say, you know, not everything has to be a competition, but here I am, like, maybe I can break 3 hours. I don't know. We'll see. But so I think it's important, though, to find those things. Running is personal. It's not, I'm competing against nobody, myself.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I need at this point in my life.
Right.
It's perfect for right now.
I love that. It's tell us what you're doing in the business world.
Sure. Yeah, I work for Jones Lang LaSalle, or JLL, which is a global real estate firm. And in fact, right before this, I was talking to a kid who just graduated college, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do. And I told him that my 20s were largely spent figuring out what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I think athletes we're so single track focused for so long.
It's hard to break that cycle.
Exactly. And you feel like you need to hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
And JLL recruited me during the pandemic, and they said, hey, we don't have anybody to lead this particular program. Like, would you be willing to come over? And it was the best thing I could have done, because it's an industry, commercial real estate, where there's so much to learn. You can never stop learning. And B, it's self-motivated. I kind of see it as like you get it done or you don't. And that works well with me.
Yeah, I know.
So I really like it. I think what's been neat though lately is that's my day job, is getting back involved in basketball again. When I was done playing, I coached for a little bit. I was a broadcaster for a little bit. And then when I was probably 27, I was like, I gotta put basketball in the rearview mirror right now. We started our family, my husband, in fact, Jimmy had a far better college career and professional career than I did.
He's an amazing athlete himself.
Yeah, and student. He was a student at
amazing
MIT.
student. Yeah.
Yeah. I tell people that I think a lot of people don't realize this, he was the second leading scorer in the whole country. Our junior year, senior year. Number one was Steph Curry.
Yeah. And
So
while going to MIT.
yeah. Yeah. So that's a whole conversation in itself, but it's, having a partner who values a lot of the same things that I do. And largely we love Saturdays in a gym. Yeah. Our girls go and shoot in the auxiliary gym, and we find a lot of value in parents of being able to have our kids just be in that environment.
Yeah.
See girls working hard, picking each other up, supporting each other. Of course, we were basketball players, and they're at the phase where they really want to make sure that there's going to be cheerleaders at every game we go to, because and it's a good reminder that they're still young girls, and that's what they like. They like watching the cheerleaders and the dancers and the basketball players. So, anyway.
So your business life, your business world, how much does it translate from your athletic world? How much does your athletic world come into your business world in terms of how you do things, how you are as a teammate in the business world, how you are as a leader in the business world, and those kind of things? How do they all kind of go together?
Yeah. I think there are intangible attributes of an athlete that translate to the business world that you really don't have to think about. So the concept of working hard, or if you don't know something, you learn it, or you figure it out. The competitiveness, that translates really well. And it's not to say that people who weren't athletes don't have those attributes, but I think sometimes you have to work harder to learn those attributes. Whereas as an athlete, it's just something that has become so, muscle memory.
Yeah.
I think this is going to almost be a little bit of an oxymoron, but I think oftentimes I can be better at things than I think I am. And I think that's also an athlete, where you're never there.
Yeah.
You've never arrived.
Which
and sometimes that can
out
hurt
too.
It's exactly what I was going to say. Sometimes it can hurt you in the business world. Or you don't have as much confidence as you actually should. And confidence might help you more than questioning yourself or thinking you need to study harder or work harder. And then I think there's a lot to be said about remote work versus in-office work right now. When I'm in the office, I love feeding off of my colleagues, and I seek out the ones who are smart. That's what I want. I want somebody who's smart, who's better than me,
Challenge.
who's smarter than me. Yeah, with knowledge. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I think that's a problem when you are.
Yeah.
On the flip side, remote work, I'm becoming very passionate about women in business. And I think that remote work has opened up a whole new avenue for working mothers specifically to have careers and be a parent. And that just didn't exist before. So there's kind of pluses and minuses to that. But I think all of that, my life as an athlete really impacts.
Are you a better teammate in the business world than you were in the athletic world? Because I was the same way. I can totally relate to what you're saying, and I think I am.
I think so. I still will find myself, I'm not a very good delegator, because maybe I'm a little bit too type A, where I want to do it and I want to control it because I can quality control it, or I trust myself, so I still think I can probably work on that. However, that being said, I work at a place that has some incredibly impressive people, to where it just takes time to get to know each other and to trust each other. And I think that's where really powerful business relationships can come from, when you really trust each other,
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
and you raise each other up.
So I'm going to ask this question now. Better leader as an athlete or a better leader as a businesswoman?
I have not been in a lot of what I've done has kind of been solo work. I think about my career as a broadcaster, that's a pretty independent job, kind of self-promoting job, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get out of it as my full-time career, is it felt a little too, self-promotional for me. I don't know how to answer that, because I think what we talked about earlier is, I look back on my basketball career and I think I could have been a better leader. The way that I lead best is probably by example.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
And because I had people doing the same thing for me.
I will say this. I'm going to challenge you. Can I challenge you?
I'm ready.
Okay. So when you just said that in the business world, you kind of take things on yourself because you trust yourself and you trust quality control, that you can get it done right and all that stuff. Trust yourself to trust others by challenging others. Because when you challenge others, you tell them that you believe in them. And that's where their growth will happen. So when you keep doing everything because you trust yourself, you're telling them that you don't trust them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you specifically, I'm just talking business leadership in general. I see it a lot, because a lot of business leaders are really competent and they're really sure what they're doing, especially a business owner. They have a really hard time of delegating, or a really hard time of challenging people to get better. And that's where you grow. You mentioned it earlier, as an athlete, you are always challenging yourself by playing older kids, by playing the boys, by doing this and doing that. You're always challenging yourself. What did that make you? It made you better. So as a leader, people are looking for them to challenge them, okay, so that they can grow and progress. That's how you help people grow and progress, is to challenge people. And I think that's a thing that's lost a lot nowadays, because people do want to control everything. And you mentioned the word trust, and you got me going now, Abs. I'm sorry.
I
But
love it. No, this is what we're here for.
the word trust is the number one thing in a relationship, right? So if you're going to build business relationships, show them that you trust them by challenging them.
Yeah.
And then coach them through the challenge. I call it CPC. You coach it, you practice it, and you challenge it. If you just coach your people that you're leading, and then you help them practice it, but you don't ever challenge it, the light bulb's never going to go on. They're not going to get better.
Yeah.
You have to coach it, and then you have to practice it with them, and then you have to challenge it. And if they're kind of failing at the challenge a little bit, that's where you come back in and start coaching again to get them through the challenge, and you keep challenging them. But that's how you've always gotten, you said it earlier, that's how you've always gotten better as an athlete. And I can see you doing the same thing. You just said it in your business life. I surround myself with people who are smarter than me. That's challenging yourself. Right. And that's what propels most people. And you're so good at it. You're so good at the challenge part, because you have so much pride in tenacity in what you do. And you do want to be the best. You want it to be the best, but not just because you want it to be the best to showcase Abby. You want it to be the best so your team will win a national championship. You want it to be the best so your company will be the best. I mean, you've been bragging about your company since I asked you about it. So why does Abby want to be the best in her company? So her company will be the best. Why did Abby want to be the best basketball player? So her team would win the state championship. So her team would win the national championship. You said it. Your goal ever since your little kid was to win a national championship. You didn't say my goal was to be the greatest basketball player on the planet. You said my goal is to be if it was to be the greatest basketball player on the planet, it was to help your team win a national championship.
I think that's the key. I think that's a key, coach, is that, I didn't look at stat sheets.
yeah,
My parents didn't keep stats because that stuff comes.
yeah,
If you have the bigger goal in mind, then everything else comes. It doesn't work in the reverse.
right. And if you keep growing, your team will keep growing. So
Mhm.
if you're in business, if you keep growing in business, guess what your company's going to do? If your people in business that you're leading keeps growing, guess what your business is going to keep doing? It's going to keep growing. And your people are the ones who give you the stats, right? I
Sure.
ask people all the time, are you a people leader or a data leader? And I answer that kind of for them. I said, if you're a data leader, good luck. Have fun with that.
Yeah, right.
If you're a people leader, they're the ones who give you the data. It's your
Yeah.
job to get your people to grow and progress so they can keep producing more and more data. And that's what a good coach does. I don't think they should ever use the term manager or boss in business
Mhm.
ever. You manage machines and you manage processes, you coach and you lead people,
Mhm.
and you lead them to get better. You think about some of the greatest coaches you've had as an athlete, they challenge you to get better all the time.
I remember that I used to worry if my coaches weren't yelling at me.
Yeah, right.
Because they yell at you because they're challenging you because of exactly what you're talking
They
about.
care about you.
Yeah.
A lot
And
of
they see
people
the
don't look at it
potential.
that way, though.
I know. Oh man, I guess it's a
I can
masochistic way
I
to
can tell
look
you
at.
that. Yeah, but
They
it's
can't do it now though because there's the transfer portal now. Coaches got to do it on
yeah,
camera.
yeah, that's the truth. It's a different world now, but you still have to find ways to challenge your people, and um way you've translated your athletic career into your business career is really fascinating to me.
Mm,
And the number one thing that, like I said, the most thing I'm proud of, and I've known you for 20 something years now, is your mom. And you're an unbelievable mom. And you have the same tenacity and pride that in being a mom that you do as being the best basketball player you could be, and so forth. And that means a lot to you. And you're just an amazing person. I have three questions for you, and then we'll end. We're almost been an hour already, and I know you got to go change the channel. So the first question I wrote a book called The Three Ps: Finding Your Purpose, Perspective, and Passion. And the reason I wrote that book is because I heard this stat that 70% of Americans are disengaged at work. And 85% of those 70 said it's because of the leadership they work for.
mm,
So I want people to not necessarily tell me what their passion and purpose is, but I want to teach them how to live in it. The challenge we have is not necessarily naming what our purpose in life is. Our
mhm,
challenge is living in that purpose, and that's where we get the greatest joy in life. The
mhm.
greatest joy I see when I see Abby now is when she's holding her daughter. That's the greatest joy I see, right? So tell me in your words, what is your purpose in life?
Oh, you make me cry. Um, I think it's to connect with the people that I love. Um, and even to bring it to, work. Maybe it's not on a love level, but it's that connection. Um, I'm working with a small pediatric group right now, and it's not going to be life-changing for me. It's not a, career making client. But he called me the other day and he said, I want to tell you, like, I just really appreciate you always being there for me and giving me sound advice that could mean this particular transaction drags out even longer. But he's like, I really appreciate that. And it was the best.
It's like
You
hitting a
know,
game. It's like hitting a game-winning three.
yeah, it was the best feeling. And
Yeah.
it kind of made me realize, like, this is what I love. I love
So
connecting with people.
so
So,
there's a book out there, Abs. It's called The Good Life, and it's based on a study by Harvard, and they've done it for almost 100 years now. And what they've done is they've selected people, and they go in and they start at age 14 and they follow them through death. and they ask them questions every 3 or 4 years, all these different questions that they've come up with. And they've done this study for almost 100 years now. Okay. So what do you think the number one thing is that gives us a good life that they found in this study?
I know the kicker.
What is it?
It's
It's
relationships.
relationships.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Having good.
I remember hearing that. It's
It's a-
really cool to hear.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So the next question, what's your passion in life?
Helping young women. Easy.
So when you look at it, I tell people your purpose and your passion kind of equal each other. They kind of support each other. The thing that holds it together is your perspective on life. And this is where we get in trouble, because this is where things come at us on a daily basis that try to take us out of our purpose. So I'll give you an example. You lose the national championship game. That's an arrow that's coming at you, trying to pop your purpose and try to get you out of there. The monks have a saying that you protect your purpose, so your purpose protects you. And I think what protects you in that is your perspective on life. So whatever happens to us, your perspective is going to hold it together so that those arrows can't get at you and take you out. So what would you say your perspective in life is?
Yeah, I think right now my answer to that is gratitude. Not that I'm great at it.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of work to do. But I think if you can find gratitude in the hard moments, and there's always going to be something to be grateful for, it can help you get to the other side of that. That sounds very idealistic, so I'm still working on it. Not to say I've mastered that.
It's a skill. I heard somebody say it today. It's a muscle. It's like building a muscle, the gratitude muscle, and you just got to keep doing it and doing it. But it's a great response, because if that's your perspective and something bad happens to you and you use that gratitude. So like when you lose this, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse with that one, but when something happens, that's not great in your life, and you can overcome it with gratitude, that's what's going to keep you living inside your purpose.
Yeah.
And that's what gives you the joy in life. And you can look at your mother and you can see that every day.
She's a perfect example of that.
Yeah, she lives that every day.
Yeah.
And now I talked to your dad the other night, and I asked him about golf, and his eyes light up. He's reached a point where he's kind of living in that space too, and it's pretty cool. I want to thank you for coming on. I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years now, and I had another Thunder Ridge girls basketball player on once too, and you guys have blown it out of the water. And just your perspective.
Who is on?
Oh, you had to ask.
I'm putting you on the spot. It's okay.
She went to Florida.
Carly Needles.
Carly's
a good one.
And she blew it out of the water too. She's a successful business person.
Yeah.
Doing well. And it just shows you that the crossover from athletics and what it gives you and how it can help you be successful in life as like I said, as a mother and a wife and a business person and all that stuff. The lessons that you learn overcoming adversity, that loss you had down in Phoenix, and you threw the water bottle against the wall, and then you learn from that, and you got better from that. And now those are lessons that you're going to be teaching your kids and their kids and everything else. It's legacy, right? And
I do. Yeah.
You guys are amazing, and I just appreciate you coming on. And I hope people take what you've said today and use it in their own life, and use it to fuel some things that maybe they're sitting around waiting for something to happen, and you fueled them to get up and get going and get after it a little bit today. So thanks you so much, Abby, for coming on. You're an amazing person, and I know I keep saying that, your family is, and just have nothing but the best to say about you guys.
Well, selfishly, I'm grateful this is what you're doing now, Coach, after your whenever your coaching career officially ends, athletic, but so we can all keep learning from you. So it's
It's fun to do. It's fun to do. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the people I have on this show.
That's what makes you who you are.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening today to the People Progressing podcast. Abby blew it out of the park like I knew she would. And just share this with people, download it. Let's keep building this show because it really is truly inspiring for people. And as I always say, please, please, please keep progressing. Thank you so much and have a great day.